All right, so we're going to continue working on our article that we read yesterday, The World's Fastest Eaters. And our focus skill today is analyzing details. So let's talk about what analyze means. So when I analyze something, I study it. I might break it into parts so that I can study it more closely. And I'm going to see what I can find out by studying those parts and put it all together. So our focus skill is analyzing details. So a detail is something that supports your central idea. So what we're going to be doing is studying the details that support our main idea. That's our focus skill. So you need to have open your assignment, and you also need to have your article handy so that you can refer back to it. So it says, use the article to answer the questions and complete the graphic organizers. This is going to help us to analyze those details. So number one, the main topic in the article is competitive eating as a sport. That's what the whole article, the main idea is about. If you look at it, the world's fastest eaters, and it's about competitive eating being the sport. So they want us to briefly explain what competitive eating is and why it should be considered a sport. So this is something that we did yesterday when we read the world's fastest eaters, and some of the questions that had you box the text evidence was what competitive eating is, and then what made it a sport. And then we're going to list 2 advantages to becoming a competitive eater and 2 disadvantages to becoming a competitive eater. So advantage, or hey, what are the benefits? What are some good things if I'm a competitive eater, if I make it my career? And then what are some bad things? What are some disadvantages that can happen if I become a competitive eater? So the very first thing we're going to do is we have to explain what competitive eating is and why it should be considered a sport. So whenever we go back to the article, on the very first paragraph, it tells us the definition of competitive eating. So it is a contest, right? A battle or a contest. And it's a sport because we know it's a sport because it is sanctioned and officiated by the International Federation of Competitive Eating. But let's think of what else makes it a sport. So think about any sport that you might watch or play. Baseball, football, softball, soccer, tennis, swimming, golf. I just named a few, there are a lot more. But if you are a competitor in those sports, can you just go out there and say, hey, I'm going to compete and never practice and never train? You might say yes, but that's not the correct answer. You might say yes to be silly, but if you say yes, then you're not going to be a true competitor because it takes training and preparation. So we know what it is, and we know that it's considered a sport because all of our other sports, you need to train and you need to prepare. And so whenever we go to the second page of the article, and it tells us behind the scenes and how competitive eaters made this a career, it tells us in the second paragraph, we've calculated our techniques and approaches to these contests. We've trained our bodies and worked for what we've accomplished, says Stoney. Competitors of the sport undergo tough training and under extreme medical supervision. So here we go, it tells us right here. The key to success is stomach elasticity. So what we want to know is, why is it considered a sport? And it tells us right here. Undergo tough training under extreme medical supervision. So whenever we answer our question, we're going to first type what competitive eating is, and we're going to explain why it should be considered a sport. So I'm going to type, and then after I type, you can type as I talk. You can also pause the video to get caught up. So we're going to write in complete sentences. So a complete sentence starts with a capital letter, and I'm going to restate it. So I have to explain what competitive eating is. So I'm going to start my sentence with competitive eating is a contest to see who can eat more food in a set amount of time. That's the definition of it, right there. Bam, I just paraphrased what I learned. And then I'm going to write a sentence about why it should be considered a sport. It is a sport because, so I'm restating the question, now I'm answering it. I need to spell sport correctly. It requires a lot of training and preparation like other sports. Now I can make this box bigger. I can also make my font smaller by highlighting it all and making my font a little bit smaller. So we just answered the question, what competitive eating is and why it should be considered a sport. If you need to pause this, please do so. After you type, please click resume. So number 2 says, list 2 advantages to becoming a competitive eater. So what I want you to do, so competitive eating is not for everyone. There are some pros and some cons. So pros just means advantage. So think about this. If you become a competitive eater, what are some good things that can happen that you learned from the article? I want you to pause this video and I want you to type two pros or benefits of being a competitive eater. Okay, hopefully you have 2 answer choices, and we're going to see if your 2 answer choices are similar to mine. So when I read the article, I know that they can make lots of money. So when I go to the article, I saw that Joey Jaws Chestnut, in one contest, he won $10,000. And he got an award. He got the medal. He got that big old mustard belt. On the second page, I saw that Matt Megatoad has a net worth of $500 million as a competitive eater. Those are some benefits. That would make me want to train to be a competitive eater. So the pros that I came up with, if you are successful, you can make lots of money. And my second one was you can break a lot of world records and receive a lot of medals. So those are my pros. Your pros should be similar to this. They may not be worded exactly, but they should be around some good positive things. Now some cons, some negatives of, hey, maybe you shouldn't be a competitive eater because this. So that whole section is going to come from the back side of the article or page 2 of the article, behind the scenes, and it's going to be in this last paragraph where medical professionals have studied the effects of speed eating or binge eating. And there are a bunch of negatives right here. So I'm going to pick 2 of those reasons as why maybe you shouldn't become a competitive eater. So my 2 are, you can develop ulcers, or perforate your stomach. That means put a hole in it. And then another one is, hey, you might actually choke. So go ahead and pause this video if you need to finish writing your 2 cons. Okay, moving on to, we're going to skip number 4 right now. I'm going to get you to come back to that one later. Let's move on to slide number 2. And in the spaces below, give details to elaborate on each central idea given. Because remember, our focus skill is analyzing details. So when you elaborate, you explain it further. It helps support your central idea. It says use details provided by the author. Be sure to use examples and anecdotes given by the author when possible. Again, the anecdote is a short story that you use to draw the reader in. And they gave us an example of the first one. So on number 5, the central idea is that Joey Chestnut is the top competitive eater. That's the central idea that we learned. So we want to give 2 or more details to elaborate, 2 or more details to support that central idea. This one, the first one we have, is just a detail that the author gave us. Joey Chestnut holds 43 world records. This detail supports and tells why he is the top competitive eater. And then they want me to try to give an anecdote when possible. So they gave us a short story in the passage. In the short story, the anecdote says he went to Nathan's hot dog eating contest to win and set a world record. He was determined during the contest. He won the mustard belt and he broke the world record. He ate 43 hot dogs. So this is an interesting short story about Joey that draws the reader in, and it supports why he's the top competitive eater. And then another detail they gave me is that he's ranked number 1. So we're reading the central idea, and then you're coming up with details to elaborate, which just means to support your central idea. So number 6, speed eating became more popular over time. So when you think about this one, I want you to think over time. So we need to know some details of when maybe it became popular. In order for us to do that, we need to probably state some details of how it started. So I need you to find a detail of how it started, how contest started, and then on the back side, when did it become popular? So I want you to pause this, and I want you to find 2 or 3 details that support speed eating became more popular over time. When you're finished, go ahead and resume. Okay, so if I'm talking about how it became popular over time, I need to talk about how it started. So I'm going to put a sentence that says, I'm going to type a sentence, it began in the early 1900s with pie eating contests at the local fair. That's telling me how it got its start. But then I know that it became popular whenever a Japanese contestant won 6 contests in a row from 2001 to 2006. Okay, so here's some facts about Takeru Kobayashi. So I'm going to also put a detail that says it became more popular when Takeru broke the world record of 25.5 hot dogs and 8. And then I want you to think, is there another one that you could have put? Maybe you just put 2. Maybe you put something a little bit different, but you should have had something how it began and how it became popular. You might have also put the detail that it became popular when it was broadcast on ESPN2. That would be a good detail to include. And then this last one, competitive eating can be a career. That means a career means that's what I'm going to do for a living. That's how I'm going to make my money for our family. So I want you to think about it. If it is a career, what are some things that I have to do? Can I go and attend just one eating contest? Or do I need to attend lots of eating contests if it's in my career? So think about that. Also, if it's a career, can I make lots of money from it? Because I have to be able to make money. And then give me an example of someone who made lots of money and how much money they made. And then if it's a career and I'm doing it full time, I would think to myself, hey, do I have to train? Because in order for me to make money, I have to train and be good at it. So think to yourself, I just gave you 3 thoughts that I want you to think about that you can type in competitive eating can be a career, giving me details that support how it can be a career. I'm not helping you with this one. You have to do it by yourself. When you're done, please, please, please make sure you are going back and clicking the blue check with the submit button.